Welcome to the second video in the character creation series. So I thought it was an appropriate time here to have a look at the various things on the character sheet that you can interact with before we go any further. So let's start at the top of the character sheet. We've opened it up here just exactly where we left off, and the first thing is this black square at the top left. So if we click on that, this will actually open the portraits folder that you may or may not have. Now what you have here is going to entirely depend on what you have in your portraits folder in Fantasy Grounds. We can have a look here. This is where the portraits folder is. It's in App Data, Roaming, Fantasy Grounds and Portraits. And if we open that, we can see that we've got I've got a variety of just portraits chucked in there, and also some portrait packs. And this is all depending on what you've bought or what you haven't bought. And you can also make your own portraits. You can see they're 100 by 100 and they're PNG files. So you can make your own. And once you have put them into that portraits folder, when you click on this black square up at the top, then it will open up your portraits folder. So let's just pick one. Once you've picked one, you'll see that not only does it add in something into the portrait, but it also by default makes that the token as well. This is the token space up here. Now, as a player, you are unlikely to have any tokens unless you bought them yourself. If you look in the tokens folder, it'll likely be blank. And this is because tokens aren't or shouldn't be shared by the Dungeon Master. And so the tokens, generally speaking, if a token gets allocated to your character, it'll be done by the Dungeon Master. In the middle up here, we can give the character a name, so let's give it a name. And then next to the class and level here, you'll find a little sort of magnifying glass, and you'll see there's a couple of other ones here and here. And these open up different dialog boxes. So if we click on this one, we can see that we've got the class and level. So this summarizes your class. You can see here that we've got the cleric, we're at level 1, and the caster here, 1x means it's a first level caster. This is what Fantasy Grounds uses to determine how many spell slots you get and at what level. And you can also see the hit dice are here, and if you had used any hit dice, it would also have a number in there. And above that, you can see the XP and the XP for the next level. Now, Fantasy Grounds doesn't; these are just figures. So Fantasy Grounds doesn't actually do anything with these, but we can, since this is a first level character, add in the 300 that we are going to need for second level. If you were creating a character completely without drag and drop or without any books or creating any kind of character, this is where you would do it. You'd click on this edit list button and you get a new line which you can then just click on this add item, and you can then add in your class, your level, the caster type, hit dice, all that kind of thing can be added in there. But we don't really want to do that, but that's where you would do it if you were doing this without drag and drop, if you were completely entering the character manually. So that's that dialogue, and we have another one down here in the middle, and if we click on that, and this is where you can add in various bonuses and other things for things like initiative, speed and armor. These will actually fill up as we go through creating the character, but you can see that the armor, for example, you've got a base of 10, then this would be the actual armor. This here would be whether you had a shield. This tells you how much of a dexterity bonus you get depending on the armor. And some classes get a second bonus to their armor. Monks, for example, if they aren't wearing armor, they can include a bonus to their armor for that. And then you've got miscellaneous as well. you'll notice this big gold star here which defaults to proficient, which means that Fantasy Grounds expect you to choose an armor with which you are proficient. If you don't, if you choose an armor with which you are not proficient, then you would need to come into this dialog here and untick this proficiency so that it makes you not proficient, and therefore you would suffer the appropriate penalties. And this is a similar thing here, stealth disadvantage. This, again, if you're wearing heavy armor, then there'll be a tick in this box which shows that you've got disadvantage on any stealth checks. Now, you don't have to worry about this because Fantasy Grounds generally will automate all of this, like the armor. Once you equip heavy armor, etc., this will get filled in. So that you're probably rarely ever having to actually come into these boxes. And in most instances, other things you can do using effects, for example, which would affect the armor class or initiative. But if you do have miscellaneous modifiers or anything like that to things like armor or initiative or speed, then you can add these figures into these boxes. And the last one that we have is down here at hit dice, and again, you're never really going to need to go in here. The second thing here was just a miscellaneous thing which was for D&D Next that has just never really been removed, but there's no classes that currently get a second bonus to their hit dice, and again there's a miscellaneous in here which again there's no classes or anything like that which use this box, so it's kind of redundant. So that's the little magnifying glasses that you can see. Now, if you look at the abilities and the saving throws here, we can see that apart from the obvious numbers and everything like that and the bonuses which are reflected in them, you can also see that down in the bottom left-hand corner there's a little dice icon. And this indicates that this is a rollable box. So if we mouse over intelligence here and double click, then a d20 dice is rolled, and you can see in chat here that it says check intelligence. So basically what we have just done is made an intelligence check. So if your Dungeon Master calls out that you need to make a dexterity check or a con check or whatever, this is where you would do it in the character sheet. You simply mouse over it until you get the hand icon and then double click and the dice will roll. You can see that it takes into consideration any bonuses etc. that you get. In this case, con +2. The +2 has been added in now. Anything else that you had in here as well for effects or anything like that would also get added in. And it's a similar story for the saving throws. Again, you've got the little dice icon in the bottom left hand corner. So if you need to make a wisdom saving throw in this case, then you just double click and it makes a saving throw, and you can see that it's added in the bonus of +5 as well as rolling the d20 and giving you the result. You can see also that your initiative's got similar dice, and again we can double click on that and that will give you your initiative. And if this character was on the combat tracker, then the initiative would be entered into the combat tracker following your roll. There's one other dice icon down here, death saving throws, and depending on whether or not the Dungeon Master has got this set to automatic death saving throws or manual death saving throws, you may never have to use this button. But if you do need to make a death saving throw, then you click on this button here and you make a death saving throw and it will tell you the result. Now, in this case, it's because it's not on the combat tracker and because the character is not at 0 hit points, nothing very much has happened. But that's how you would do it. And if you failed or succeeded, then these little boxes would be ticked. So you may find that there's 2 ticks on the S and 1 fail, whatever, depending on how many you've made, etc., etc. And then there's this other box here, which is your hit dice, and this is the hit dice that you would use if you're taking a rest to recover some wounds. And in order to do that, you would simply just double click on this box here. If we double click, it will show that there is, it rolled a 3, but because Bob's not wounded, this hasn't changed and this dice hasn't gone away. If Bob was actually wounded, if he did have some wounds, then this dice would disappear once we've used the last one. If you're level 5 or 6, you're going to have several dice in here. Once the last one is used, this will disappear, and you'll get the appropriate amount back after a long rest. Half your hit dice gets returned after a long rest. So that's all automated for you. But these are the roles, these are the boxes and the roles that you can make, and all the little secret icons that you can see into from in the character sheet. Now there's one other. You'll notice that several of these boxes have little pluses beside them, and this will allow you to add in, say, temporary bonuses or whatever to a particular statistic or whatever. So if, for example, we got some spell cast upon us that gave us an extra 5 feet of speed, then what we would do is we mouse over the little plus, and whilst holding down the CTRL key, use the middle mouse button to scroll up until the number in that little box is 5. Now you can see here that the 25 feet has gone up to 30, and the little balloon here is showing us as a +5. So that gives us a visual indication that our normal speed has been temporarily affected, and we can reverse it simply by mousing over again, holding down CTRL and reversing it using the middle mouse button. If we have a quick look at the skills tab, you will see again that we've got the little dice icon in the skills tab, and so again these are rollable boxes. So if we need to make a history check, we just simply mouse over here till we get the hand icon and then double click, and we will make the appropriate skill check. And that just leaves us really just one other little thing, and that's the inspiration button up at the very top here. You'll see that there's a little checkbox under INSP, and this is for inspiration. So if your Dungeon Master says you've got inspiration for particularly fine role-playing or solving a puzzle or whatever reason, then you just click on this box, and that tells you that you are sitting with inspiration. And if you see the portrait up in the top left here has also got a big yellow star on it, so that tells you you've got your inspiration, and at some point in time you can get an advantage on a D20 roll for whatever reason. Once you've used it, then you would have to tick the box again to show that you had lost the inspiration or you have used it. Right, I think that's enough for this video, and we'll see you again in the next one.